All right, guys, just got back from the game, sitting down to make this video, the one I didn't want to make, the post-loss reaction. Obviously, it's really painful because of all the excitement, all the, hopium we've been smoking on, new staff. You feel like you're turning a page. You feel like you still have the talent to be really good, and you have such a premier home opportunity with the country watching in week one to kick off this new era, and you lose. And no matter how you slice it, no matter how the game would have gone, you would have felt really bad after a loss. But a couple of really scary developments for Aggies watching this game. I mean, you got to start with Connor Wigman, right? And before I get into it, I want to warn you guys, this isn't going to be the most entertaining video. This is probably not the video you want to watch. So if you want to click off right now, I totally understand. A lot of negative to go through. I will throw a couple positive spins in here because there is still hope, but obviously that took a blow today. So if you don't want to watch this one, click off. Totally understand. Connor Wigman was inaccurate today. We've hyped him up. We've talked about him. He's gotten a lot of love from a lot of analysts, and he didn't get it done today. That's the storyline of the game, right? That's what Aggies are going to be thinking about and talking about over the next couple of weeks until you play another SEC opponent. Connor Wigman was not what we had seen before. So it's really easy just to point at that right there and say, okay, that's why you lost the game. Let's make a couple other things clear. I'm going to give you some more overarching things, and then we'll start zooming into some individual aspects. Overall, I thought Notre Dame played like a really well-coached team. I thought early in the game, A&M had some success. Obviously, a good opening drive, some good defense. You kind of hurt yourself with some penalties. We'll talk about it more in detail in a second. But the offense really started to stall out. Sloppy play, penalties, 2 turnovers. And as A&M was going through that, I felt like Notre Dame started to settle into the game. Now, I don't want to sit here and say Notre Dame played a perfect game because this was still a game one for them. They still had some negative moments, X's and O's, players-wise, but they did not make critical game-altering mistakes like A&M did. So hats off to Marcus Freeman. He got them ready for a fist fight on the road. That was a crazy atmosphere down the stretch of that game when it was tied 13-13, I think early fourth quarter. And they weathered the storm, and they won. So that's a really good team. That's a really good defense. We'll talk more about it. A&M made big mistakes that led to Notre Dame points. Early in the game, it was the targeting call by Dalton Brooks, clearly targeting, kicked out of the game. Notre Dame gets 3. The next drive, you can call it a savvy play by Riley Leonard. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but it was the underthrow PI where the receiver tries to come back to the ball, and just by the nature of the way the routes run and the way the guy's covering it, Tyreek Chappell's in the way, and they call the PI. They get a field goal. A&M has a great play design, get a sneak. I love that. It was a spread look. You kind of bring everything inside off of motion. Connor kind of like meanders up to under center, takes the snap. It's a great sneak play. You got the first down easily. You flinched. You have to punt it. Connor threw 2 interceptions, all in the first. This is all in the first half. This is all setting the tone in the game. And Notre Dame didn't do that. So that, to me, was the early indicator of what was to come. I felt very uneasy with the way the game went in the first half. I'm sure you did too. I was thinking this is a weird game. Every time this crowd really wants to get into it, something happens. Notre Dame makes a positive play, and it makes a negative play. Something would happen to kind of just, say you're not being consistent. You were not consistent in the game, and Notre Dame was more consistent. So going back to Connor, he was inaccurate, but it's hard for me only to point the finger at him because I do not feel like the receiver room helped him out. I felt like early in the game, Jade got some separation on some of the scripted plays. You were playing your best ball. Jade got some separation in the first half. Cyrus Allen got some separation in the first couple of drives. But outside of that, nothing. Noah was blanketed. You didn't really have a tight end safety valve for you. You didn't have any short routes available to you. And what Notre Dame was able to do is just man up with that behemoth secondary and stack the box and stop A&M's offense. I think the positive, though, of A&M's offensive performance was the offensive line, surprisingly. They weren't perfect, but I felt like they played a pretty even match versus a really, really good defensive line. I didn't feel like Connor was particularly pressured in the game, and a couple times when he sensed pressure, he threw bad balls, but it wasn't like he was getting thrown around. He got sacked, I think, once or twice in the game against a really good D-line, against a really good defense. I felt like the O-line held their own. There were running opportunities. You ran the ball okay, but they were able to stack the box, so it was limited there. You didn't have a passing game, and by the time the game went down to the home stretch, they started to fade the passing game overall, and the offense became a lot more vanilla. Because that's what a good defense does. They take you out of your game plan. They say, nope, you're not going to do this. We know we're this talented, and you have to do this, and we're just going to stop you. And they were able to do that. A&M had that one nice, desperate drive, that goal line touchdown late in the game. I kind of liked how you were able to throw E.J. Smith out there with fresh legs. He had a couple of big runs on that drive, and then it took a couple tries. Le'Veon Moss got it in the end zone. You had some success running the football, but the lack of a threat of passing game just demolished your offense. Now I've been seeing, criticisms towards the offensive play calling. Yeah, I hear you. But both teams playing hard, man. That's a really freaking good defense, and they were playing well. They did their job. I mean, that's what happens when you play a really good defense. You can't be yourself. You have to adjust to it, and the adjustment, unfortunately, was just becoming vanilla, running between the tackles a lot, and just playing ball with that. And they were more successful there than we were. So that was really the offensive game there. So going forward with the offense, before we get to the defensive talk, I don't know if you can fix the playmaker receiver problem on the team. I don't know if just a big-time player that strikes fear into the hearts of defenses is just going to emerge. I mean, maybe Terry Bussey gets more involved as the year goes on. They tried to get to him early. They covered it. They kind of faded that as the game went on. Maybe he becomes more involved down the stretch. Moose barely played until late in the game. It didn't do much. You just don't really have a lot of explosive weapons, and I don't know if that can be fixed. But what can be fixed, we think Connor can get better after a really long layover. Now, obviously, two ways that can go, right? I'm not going to sit here and condemn Connor Wigman after one bad game, his first game back from a season-ending injury against that defense. I'm not going to do that. But if it keeps happening, it could happen. Connor could just not return to what he was before, what we saw glimpses of as a true freshman and for 3 games last year. There's a world where that's the case, but I don't think we should be ready to do that just yet. I think that's very premature. First of all, first game back. Second of all, that defense. I mean, that's a storm for losing a game right there. Now, we talked about it. It was a talking point through, at least on this channel, throughout the last couple months of the offseason. How long was it going to take Connor to become himself? Was it going to be a drive, a quarter, a game, multiple games? And he wasn't himself that game. And is his old self still there? So, yeah, you can ask the question, but I don't think we're calling for his head yet. I don't think that's the right course of action. It has to improve. And when you play McNeese next week, obviously you're probably going to win that game. You need to play well within yourself and kind of disregarding the opponent's side of things. Just play clean. Don't have the turnovers. Be accurate. Find timing. Find rhythm. Receivers, get open consistently. That's how you move forward there. And we'll talk about it then. Let's talk about the defense real quick, then we'll get back into some more overarching stuff. I really like the secondary. I think the secondary was probably the highlight of the entire team. I think Marcus Radcliffe showed that he's going to be a major player. He was in there like the third play of the game. Bryce Anderson played really well. I can't wait to see what happens when you get Dalton Brooks in there. He's poised for a really big year. It sucked to lose him. I thought the corners played pretty well. Des Ricks got targeted a couple times, but he was able to tackle well to put a lid on those plays. D-line did not dominate like how we had hoped, and I would say that was almost a stalemate, if not a stalemate with their offensive line, their young offensive line. And that was what we were targeting as our big point of attack for the game. Their O-line played much better than you would expect a bunch of freshmen to play on the road. They played really well. Hats off to them. There's a reason those guys won those jobs. And they're going to be so good down the stretch of the year because they're going to be better from playing in this environment, in this kind of a game. That's Notre Dame offensive line is back. It's back, folks, and that's what happened there. Now, defensive line did have their moments. They were able to get penetration at times, and it was Shamar Turner. I saw some Cassius Howell moments. Rylan Kennedy had a moment early. Nick Scorton didn't do much, in my opinion. You weren't able to win a bunch of one-on-ones, and it wasn't what we had wanted from that matchup. On top of that, I felt like interior linebacker run fits were not good this game, and it's hard to tell from a naked eye. This is just raw, not looking at film, coming straight from the game. It seemed like Torrin York had a bad game, wasn't as involved as you would have hoped. Scooby Williams, I thought, had some really good moments, looked really fast and athletic out there, was able to chase Riley Leonard down a few times. I'll need to go back and key in on him, and Damian Sanford got in the game too. But it seemed like at that second level, running backs, maybe there was some havoc on the defensive line they were creating, but they were able to squirt through it and not get tackled on that second level of defense. And even if you had them in second and long situations, they were just squirting through and making up yards on second and longs and running and getting big chunk plays in the running game. So really going to bank on some improvement there. We know what we've gotten from Torian before. Hopefully that's still there. Hopefully you're not just missing McKinley and Edgerrin, and that's just how it is this year. You hope they can find that and get better, because I didn't think the defense was all bad. I mean, you gave up big runs, critical runs in the game, but secondary played really well. They were very involved in the game, whether it was the running game or the passing game. Bo Collins made a great contested catch down the stretch that was super clutch with the toe tap. Credit to him there. We didn't get that kind of receiver play. They did when it counted the most. Hopefully Faison's okay. I saw he left the game. I didn't notice if he came back or not. He looked like he was banged up. Hopefully he's okay. But I really am encouraged by that secondary. And really, I know you gave up the yards on in the running game, but that was not having complimentary football. I mean, every subsequent drive down the stretch of that game, the pressure and the exhaustion was just increasing for that defense more and more and more and more. And they started playing their best ball in that fourth quarter. And they were able to get their best drives in that fourth quarter. And, maybe better offensive play. You're having more sustained drives, keeping them off the field longer, giving them hope, because defenses can lose hope down the stretch of a game if the offense isn't giving them anything to be excited about or rely on or lean on. That all plays into it. So I still think this defense has a chance to be really, really good. But I am probably most disheartened by the fact that the D-line was not dominant in this game. And I told you, if it wasn't dominant or if it wasn't, a win in the position battle, I would have concerns about it. I would say it was pretty close to a stalemate. So I don't feel great about it. Well, let's see how they bounce back. Nick Scorton played that game hurt. He rolled his ankle early in the game. He came back. Hopefully Mark Naboo's okay. I don't know if he came back. Armaje Reed-Adams did come back into the game after he got hurt. A lot of, that was part of the game early too, where I was saying it was a weird game, the way it was kind of going. You would get momentum or start feeling good, then it'd be like a big injury to quiet and like humble the crowd, or a penalty or a turnover that would kind of just dull the place down. And you couldn't stay in rhythm. You couldn't find consistency. And it was always something, whether it was that or other things. There was a million little things that just kind of kept this game down for A&M early. But credit to Notre Dame, man. They settled into the game way faster than A&M did. They're clearly coached really well. Took A&M way too long to get comfortable. Brutal second quarter for A&M with the 2 interceptions. I think they're both in the second quarter penalties. And they just got beat by a better football team. That's just what happened. Moving forward, you got to get better versus McNeese. I mean, you got to see improvement, right? Week 1 to week 2. What else can you say? People are ready to say this is the same old shit. It's bad coaching. We're doomed. We're cursed. Maybe. Definitely maybe. But a lot of football left. A lot of improvement to be made. And it remains to be seen how good Notre Dame is once they get into their schedule. But that was a big road hurdle for them to get over, and they did it really well down the stretch of that game. They played really well down the stretch. So you're not going to see a defense that good until maybe Texas, and even that's not as good as Notre Dame. People will tell you that Notre Dame is overrated. That secondary is not overrated. Howard Cross is not overrated. Riley Mills is not overrated. That deep linebacker core where the freshman Biamuasu had a huge play this game. That linebacker crew is not overrated. That's a good-ass defense. Riley Leonard was a hustler and a strong, clutch runner down the stretch. Jeremiah Love was a strong, persistent rusher. Jadarian Price was a persistent rusher with that long touchdown. That's a good team. It's a good freaking team. So, I don't know if you're going to see that for the next couple of weeks. So you have a chance to get better, especially versus McNeese. And then Florida looked really bad today. I'm not really here to talk about that, but they did look very, very vulnerable. And of course, A&M looked probably a lot worse than what you would have hoped, so that kind of bounces out a little bit. But Florida looked bad, so maybe you have a chance there. But guys, that's about all I can do. Just coming off the stands and being emotional right now. What I'll do is I'll watch the game, I'll take notes, we'll go position by position, talk about everybody on the next video I do. It'll be a longer, fleshed out version of this one where we get into the weeds, into the details of everything. That'll probably drop Monday morning, Sunday night, something like that. And then Monday night, we'll go live, give you guys a chance to call in and vent about what we just saw. But guys, stay safe, keep your head up. A lot of football left. Don't let yourself get too depressed because we got a whole season ahead of us, folks. Let's let this thing play out a little bit. Go from there. Thanks, guys. Gig 'em.